I'm back from the Crossworlds mines, everyone. Sadly though, I didn't get top 24, which means that I won't be going to the World Championship. I did get top 40 though, which I'm pretty happy about. But to be honest, this legend competition for Sonic Racing was by far the worst one I've ever experienced. And I actually hope that the World Championship is a pathetic display of the game's bugs and item balance, just to show Sega how much they neglected this game and hope that they actually decide to balance the game in the next patch. I'll save you guys the details, but pretty much they tried to make a casual kart racer with insanely potent items a competitive game mode. But the problem with that is that your lines and driving skills don't really matter that much when RNG is still a contributing factor to how races will end. I spent the last 3 weeks of my life suffering from sunken cost fallacy from a fucking racing game of all things, because if I didn't at least get top 100 after all this time I spent grinding, I would have blown my shit smooth off. Anywho, what matters is that I'm free. Splatoon Raiders is most likely already out by the time this video is done, and I'll have already sunk my teeth deep into that game for a bit. So, what is it that I wanted to talk about for today regarding ZZZ? Well, first off, where are my manners? Hello everyone, my name is Rune, and today I wanted to talk about how fire is the worst element in ZZZ. Before we get started, shout out to the channel members as always, and be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing afterwards. Without further ado, let's get into it. The main reason why I personally believe that fire is the worst element in ZZZ is simply because of the matchup spread. There's not a lot of endgame bosses that are weak to fire, and in fact, there's actually a couple that resist the element too. I'm primarily talking about bosses within Deadly Assault, since Shiyu Defense does have a lot of fire weak bosses. However, most of these guys have been demoted to either Shiyu 4 fodder or are missing in action due to ZZZ barely releasing fire agents. That isn't to say that there's virtually no fire weak bosses within the game at all, it's just that the ones that do exist usually serve to be fodder for easier levels in wave clearing, or appear once a new fire agent is released only to never return again. I'll see you in 3 years, Pompey. So yeah, the general matchup spread between fire weak enemies within ZZZ is pretty lackluster, but that isn't the only reason why I think this element sucks. Majority of characters within the fire element all struggle with different things that make them less viable for clearing endgame. Most of these problems are due to either character age or rarity, but because of the low number of fire weak bosses and low frequency of them appearing in endgame modes, this amplifies these agents' weaknesses more. And obviously you can still clear content with everybody within this element, but just about every single one of them suffer from a character specific problem that gets worsened due to the matchup spread. So I'm going to go over each character within the element, explain why they either suck or feel weak, and suggest potential changes I'd make to them in order to make them a lot more viable. Reminder that these are just my opinions and that they are subjective, and you are more than welcome to agree or disagree with me respectfully in the comments below. Ben Bigger. My ex-husband, we all know and love him. This character is the worst one in the game, and quite frankly, there isn't much we can do to save him. A day 1, 4-star defense unit with horrible scaling and a terrible weapon effect. This agent exists as a meme to run as a DPS character, and I think the only way we fix him is to make him a 5-star variant where he's butt booty naked and slaps the ethereals around with his giant cock. But in all seriousness though, I genuinely believe the best way to buff this character is to just give him a 5-star version, and make him a fire attacker that actually scales off of his entire defense this time. Luciana de Montefio. I'm honestly confused as to why this character is getting a skin when she's literally one of the worst supports in the game. She doesn't have the numbers to keep up with modern endgame anymore, and only existed as an option for Soldier 11 or Caledon teams back in the day. She's also worse than the other free-to-play support options, with Nicole fucking mogging her in terms of general use. And if you have Rena, she ends up being a better option with her new potential buff. Even with the Rupture additional ability buff that Lucy got, they're giving out Lucia for free as a part of the anniversary selector, with her signature, mind you. So you'd be stupid to even think about pulling for anyone but Lucia as your selector this year. Hi everybody, I'm stupid. Anywho, Lucy is another agent that would be better off getting a 5-star variant to save her. But for now, she gets to suffer in the same purgatory that Ben's in. Coleta Bellabog. Our first S-rank standard banner agent. All this character does is stun the enemy really fast. And in a world where stunners need to do that, but also provide insane buffs to DPS agents, Coleta falls short entirely. melee. Her debuff is pretty bad since it only buffs chain attacks during the stun phase, and characters that only do one thing for the team typically don't do much in long term. She's also completely outclassed by Norma now, but there's not much that we can do about that. And even with the Rupture additional ability buff, Coletta only exists to be a cold corpse for you to rob her W engine off of. As for how I'd go about fixing Coletta, I would just change it so that her debuff is a general damage increase alongside the chain attack buff. We could also give her an aftershock attack that's just her quick assist, but enemies hit by it during the stun phase will have their stun timer increased by roughly 2 seconds. This character isn't that weird of a case, but she kinda has to be bad considering that she is a standard banner S rank, so there's not really much I'd do to change her besides that. Soldier 11, by far the better standard S rank agent here. Haden is actually in a pretty decent spot all things considered. With Norma now being her best in slot stunner agent, that means that she can finally make use of Sana as well, putting together a fairly solid team comp for endgame. Sadly though, unless you have either M5 or Evelyn's engine on her, she still feels pretty weak to use for endgame. Now, I'm not downplaying Haden at all, but even with these potential buffs, she still doesn't hold a candle to other DPS agents. She is still a standard S rank agent after all. Norma definitely irons out her kinks, but this character was put in before a Void Hunter, so I doubt a majority of players are going to be spending their pulls on Norma just to buff a standard S rank agent. The fact that Norma was put before Remiel shouldn't undermine the overall strengths of Haden with Norma now. She still does solid damage, and her potentials help her deal more of it too, but I'm afraid that's all this character does, deal raw damage. She is incredibly reliant on the other two agents on her team to hyper carry her since she doesn't buff herself that much natively. So Haden's going to feel pretty good for a bit, but after the Norma shilling is done, she's gonna go right back to being a niche fire DPS. And honestly, the thing that I would do to fix her is to just give her a stun additional ability. That way she isn't tied to just Norma or Fufu. Giving her a generic stun additional ability means that she can also make use of dial-in and trigger without needing to sacrifice the team comps with a worse fire support. Bernice White, by far the current best fire character in the game, and she's only going to get better as Remiel releases. Even though she may be a Valina merchant, the fact that she is the only fire anomaly agent sets her apart from the rest. The only reason why this character sucks is because most of the anomaly focused bosses resist fire. So while she's going to have a lot of longevity due to Valina and Remiel, she still suffers from most of her matchups not being in her favor. Another thing to mention is that, due to Valina releasing, Bernice has now lost all purpose in being a sub DPS, with Vivian, Nongong Yu, and Valina herself outpacing her by miles. So it's kind of funny that this character has new light breathed into her, but has also fundamentally lost her identity as the main role she debuted as. One thing that I would do to change her is to increase the scaling and frequency of her blooms from her potential buff. Right now, this attack is very minuscule and barely happens enough for it to contribute to her damage. So I think it would be better to make her trigger blooms more often and up the DPS on them a bit. Lighter. This character saddens me because he could have been so much more, but he was released as a weird niche support for Soldier 11, Ellen, and Caledon members. Even though he was mainly designed with Evelyn in mind at the time, he suffers from being an elemental focused stunner as opposed to the common damage increase or crit stat stunner. Pair that with the fact that he's only usable for 2 elements in the game, and you have a weird attacker only stunner that cannot keep up with the current pace of the game anymore. I seriously don't understand why this character got a faction requirement in his additional ability when either Fire and Ice or Anomaly would have been so much better for him. 2 of the Caledon members are already Anomaly, and you wouldn't need to get his additional ability from the other faction members considering you'd need to have an attacker agent anyways. And because the rest of Caledon already get their additional abilities from Lighter, it's incredibly redundant that he also requires faction as well when most Caledon team comps can easily get his additional ability from the attacker agent alone. I also want to talk about how he was robbed of his chance of being a great stunner for Rupture agents, but I'll talk about that once we get to the reason why he doesn't have it. As for now, the only thing that I change on him is adding Rupture to his additional ability and giving him another damage source that isn't tied to elemental damage. Because once again, characters that only buff one thing about the team don't usually last long in terms of team comps. Now, if you have noticed already, I've been going in order of the fire agents starting from release, but we're going to skip over the 1.5 fire agent because she is the main reason why I wanted to make this video in the first place, and I wanted to save her for last. So we'll come back to her after we finish talking about the other agents. Jufufu. Do you guys remember when I said that I was going to talk about Lighter not getting the Rupture additional ability?
Fufu's here!
This is the reason why I do not like this character. Not because of her appearance, her character, or because of the people that enjoy her. I actually think that Fufu is pretty hilarious, but I don't like Jifufu because she is the main reason why Lighter is horrible now. And not only that, this character killed Lighter only to be arguably worse than him in the attacker comps that she competes with him in. This character is horrible at what she does, and the only reason why she's still considered usable is because she's the dedicated rupture stunner for those who don't have Dial-In or Norma. But fuck all that, I'm gonna be mean here. She doesn't even element match with the main rupture agent she was made for, and while she's a decent side grade for Banyue, not only does he and every other rupture agent in the game want Dial-In or Norma, but on top of that, she takes forever to stun the enemy. It's not even that her buffs are bad or that she doesn't fit into certain team comps or anything. It's the fact that Jifufu is a stunner agent that is getting outdazed by fucking Sissia of all characters. The main reason why Lighter is only locked to Hugo, Evelyn, and Ellen comps is because they released a stunner for rupture agents that doesn't even stun fast enough for that class. And most attacker agents already have a better stunner in mind that isn't Jifufu. So I can't offset my Dial-In with Lighter for my Banyue teams because they decided to release a character that they power crept literally 3 patches after she released. And the only notable thing that Fufu has done that I can give her credit for is give us King of the Summit. So thank you Fufu for that, I guess. The few things that I would change about her is to first increase her days multipliers, and second, give her a stun multiplier buff to complement the newly added days. For her decibels, I'd say to just increase her decibel refund so that DPS agents are more likely to have ult again by the second stun, because if we can't have her be Dial-In exactly, the least we can do is turn her into an accelerating support. That way she can constantly keep up a DPS's resources for a team that's going to be stunning the enemy a lot and quickly. Orphe and Magus. This character only exists for Sanbei. She used to be a premium option for Seed, but then Sissia came out. And this sucks for Orphe because not only does Sissia element match with Seed, but her buffs are generally better for her compared to what this duo provides. Include the naturally high days stat and the ability to run Astral Voice, and you have Seed's best in slot attacker agent. Orphe is in a bit of a weird spot where she would have been a consistent sub DPS if she wasn't the current element she is. Most electric weak bosses resist fire, and most fire weak bosses resist electric. So you have this weird dichotomy between these Obo Squad comps where Orphe is always going to be dealing either resisted or neutral damage on the bosses that Sanbei and Seed are good against, and you would never bring Sanbei and Seed to a fire weak boss just because you have Orphe. The sad part is that I don't even think that this character really needs any fixing. Nearly everything in her kit is fine, it's just that the environment she's in doesn't really complement her at all. The only thing that I would recommend changing for her is literally her element, specifically to electric. That, or releasing another Aftershock main DPS that she can element match with. While Sissia does replace Orphe for Seed teams, Sanbei is still stuck with her due to her heavy reliance on Aftershock teammates. So if Orphe could get a new Aftershock main DPS that's also fire, then that would vastly improve this character's performance and pull value in my opinion. Kamano Monotone, the free-to-play Rupture DPS. This character certainly does his job, it's just that once again, the environment he's in sucks for him. Not to mention that the dedicated boss that he's good at can be cleared with the S-rank Ice Rupture agent that came out with him in the same patch. Oh, and the other Fire Rupture agent that came out a patch later. Barring personal preferences on his gameplay aside, there's only so much an A-rank DPS unit can do even with the best possible options available. He exists to be a free-to-play option for players who want to invest in the Rupture class, which is nice, but he sadly suffers from a fire-phobic environment like the rest of these agents. The only suggestion I'd have for Monotone is to just give him more fire weak bosses and more Rupture bosses, since his kit is actually pretty solid for an A-rank DPS, even if I personally don't like his gameplay loop. Also, make his EX skill a little bit faster please. Banyue Shifu. As much as I love this character so damn much, he feels so bad to use in the current state of the game. Let me be clear when I say that Banyue is not a bad agent by any means. He is the best fire DPS agent in the game outside of Bernice with Valina. My issue with this character mainly revolves around his resource management. Let me preface this by saying that I don't have any problems with his execution, and I find myself landing perfect rotations every time I use him. It's making sure that he has a full visage gauge for every rotation that's the most frustrating thing about this character. Because if I don't kill the boss in the first stun rotation after a whole minute of setting up on this character, you may as well reset and try again. And if we're talking about Deadly Assault, then I have to run the tightest of rotations to make sure that I'm giving Banyue enough manual and default parries so that he has both ult and visage up by the second stun. So what exactly is the problem here? Well, why go through so much effort to use a character like Banyue when most of the fire weak content in the game that he's good against is also weak to another element, and the rupture agent of that element is usually a lot better and easier to use than him. Now, I hate to compare because it isn't a practical argument when talking about character viability, but it's sadly true. There's no point in managing this character's resources when every other rupture agent can just EX skill as a parry and deal damage that way. Even Monato has this, and he's a lower rarity than Banyue. But you know what? Let's say that I was the problem here. Maybe I was playing Banyue wrong. So I took some time to look at some clears and guides with Banyue to see if I was doing anything wrong on this character and that if it was a skill issue on my part. And to my surprise, I learned that there was a way to skip his hold basic animation during the stun phase. This tech actually changes a lot about Banyue's rotations, so I figured learning it would change how I feel about the character. So I spent about an hour or so trying to learn this tech, but 30 minutes in, I realized that my point still stayed the same whether I learned the tech or not. I didn't end up learning how to do this tech due to the issue of having to input his specials whilst holding a button down to prevent a chain attack. But even if I did learn how to do this tech, it would have only added more things to do on this character compared to the other rupture agents. And again, why should I spend so much time setting up on Banyue when I have an M2 Yishuan in my back pocket that clears everything? And honestly, I don't even think changing his element would fix this character that much, because he still has the added complexity to him compared to the other agents. So the only thing that I would really do to fix this character is to give the game an actual button or keybind to hold for manual chain attacks. That way I could learn the skip hold basic tech and have a little bit more fun using this character. But because he's not only a complicated character to use, but is also a fire agent, he's sadly going to suffer in this anti-fire environment until they add more bosses. Norma Hollowell. And to say a few quick things about Norma, since she's our most recent fire agent, this character isn't bad at all, and she will in fact become a mainstay option for most teams. She does amazing work at giving longevity to older fire DPS agents, and is a great option for Pyrois as well. This character is too new to suggest anything to change about her, and even after her shielding is done, I don't think she's going to struggle at all. In fact, she's probably going to be the only fire agent that has a comfortable time in the game due to debuting in the big 3.0 patch. So yeah, Norma will be fine, but I just wanted to mention her anyways because some of y'all would have wondered where she was if I didn't. Evelyn Chevalier. Buckle up guys, because this one is going to be loaded. Astra's right-hand woman, the perfect attacker agent with an amazing gameplay loop. This character is the main reason why I wanted to make this video in the first place. Now, to put things into perspective, I do not have Norma. I will not be getting Norma until her rerun. I gave her about 60 pulls and lost my 50-50 to Grace, which is fine because I made an honest attempt at getting the character and I didn't end up getting her. I also did not pull for Ye Guang and suffered immensely in endgame content due to that. Therefore, as someone who cares about clearing content and scoring well, I cannot afford to skip another Void Hunter. So, instead of pulling for Norma, despite the fact that my account can significantly benefit from it, pulling for Remiel is the way smarter option given what I have on my account. However, even if I did have Norma, my feelings about Evelyn wouldn't change that much. Evelyn is probably the third worst aging limited attacker agent in the game, next to Hugo. And the reason why I think she sucks is because of two factors. She is heavily reliant on Astra, and she doesn't have a dedicated drive disc set when she was clearly designed to have one. Let's talk about her girlfriend first though. If you're watching this video and have played Zenless for longer than a month, you know who Astra Yao is, and you know what she does. Or, I guess a better statement would be what she doesn't do. Astra is basically the set it and forget it support, with her main thing being the ability to give quick assists and her ult giving 2 free chain attacks. Now, this is perfectly fine for a character like Evelyn, especially considering that they were designed with each other in mind after all. However, that's the problem. While Astra can slot into pretty much any team comp without worry, Evelyn is basically 2/3 of a character without Astra. The bulk of Evelyn's damage comes from her chain attacks, so it's incentivized to give both Astra's free chain attacks to Eve. But when you remove Astra from the equation, you're removing a big chunk of Evelyn's damage as well. Another problem Evelyn has nowadays is not only miasma, but bosses that also require a lot of defensive assists, and Astra does not have a defensive assist. meaning that you'd have to parry between the two agents that do between Evelyn and the stunner. This wouldn't be a problem if most bosses didn't have flurry attacks that are meant to be parried consecutively, and while you can cycle in between the two characters, sometimes you can't hit every parry due to the agent still being on field for a split second, turning the yellow flash into a red one since there are no available agents to parry with. This becomes even more of a problem because sometimes these bosses have miasma phases where you're encouraged to hit every parry to shred the bar down, but since Evelyn is incredibly dependent on Astra, this ends up being a liability for her since you'll be losing out on a third defensive assist that could potentially help shred miasma or keep your assist points up. The biggest issue with Astra still being Evelyn's best in slot support is simply because she is not a real third teammate. She does not have a notable enough presence on the team in an environment where bosses have mandatory parries required for clearing, and she doesn't really contribute to much outside of her quick assists. But even then, that's a double-edged sword with how surprisingly energy hungry she is with them. Pair that with the fact that she doesn't really deal any days with her off-field attacks, and you have a character that only exists to be a stat stick for Evelyn. Now obviously, Astra is still a wonderful support despite these flaws, but it just sucks that she fell victim to the 2.x boss design of requiring a defensive assist to engage with the boss's mechanics. You can still parry with the other two agents on the team, but then you run into the problem of burning through both Astra's energy and your assist points. So while she has her niche of enabling DPSs with quick assists, she fundamentally ruins both Evelyn's and her own gameplay by simply existing on a team together, at least in the context of modern endgame nowadays. But that's enough about Astra. By far, the most egregious thing about Evelyn is the fact that there is still not a dedicated drive disc set for chain attacks that she can use. There is a drive disc set for every other possible action that you could perform in the game except for chain attacks. You have Dawn's Bloom for basic attacks, Woodpecker Electro gets activated off of dodge counters, Shadow Harmony buffs dash attacks and aftershocks, Astral Voice gets triggered through quick assists, Protopunk and Bunny in Wonderland get activated through defensive or evasive assists. Just about every other set in the game does something when you EX skill, and you have Puffer Electro for ultimates. There is even a drive disc set for when you get hit. But you mean to tell me that Evelyn can't get a generic chain attack set to help her out more? It doesn't help that Astra not only got another set to use on top of the fact that she got her own dedicated drive disc set, but she gave Astral Voice to Evelyn like there's some damn leftovers. And it's absolutely insane that Evelyn's best in slot artifact set is a fucking support set because none of the generic DPS ones synergize with her at all. But Rune, there's actually drive disc sets that do something when you chain attack. Look me in the eye and tell me that you're going to willingly put Evelyn on 4 pieces of swing jazz. King of the Summit? Aw man, if only she were a stunner agent. Yonkwai Tails? Damn man, let's give her an even worse 2-piece effect and even more crit rate. Yup, that'll work. And these sets don't even directly buff chain attacks. They just activate an effect when initiating one. And while these effects are decent, they're not inherently anything that Evelyn can use or stuff that she doesn't already do herself. I just don't understand why the ZZZ devs are so scared to add a new set that buffs chain attacks directly. Most of these other sets usually have a character that's themed around them, and said character often specializes in doing a specific core mechanic to get that set online. Evelyn is clearly themed around chain attacks, which is another core mechanic of the game, but for some reason, she didn't get a set to help her utilize the fact that she does them more than any other character in the roster. Instead, the support that EX skills once and does nothing else for the rest of the fight got the dedicated set in place of her. And the worst part is that it wouldn't even be that hard to come up with a set for chain attacks either. The 2-piece effect could be plus 15% chain attack damage, and the 4-piece effect could be something like chain attack speed plus 50%, and when the user initiates a chain attack, grants a stack of Sunder. Each stack of Sunder increases the equipper's attack by 8%, stacking up to 3 times. And then boom, the character is fixed. But for some reason, Evelyn is too new to be put on the standard banner or given a potential unlock, but too old to be given a new artifact set. And I get that she just got Norma, but now we're running into the Star Rail problem of patching out characters' weaknesses by releasing new characters instead of artifact sets that would actually complement them. Now, to ask the age-old question, what would I do to Evelyn to fix her? And that's simple, just release an actual drive this set that complements her playstyle. She doesn't need to change her element, and she doesn't need any specific shilling or boss edition. If she's going to be by Astra's side 24/7, the least that we can do is give her an artifact set that she can actually make use of. And that's every fire agent in the game currently as of the 3.0 release. As for Claire, I'm not particularly excited for her anymore because she's most likely going to do something that my account doesn't need. So I don't really want to put myself in another Sissia situation when I need to get her weapon as well. Hey guys, Editing Rune here. This motherfucker is lying. He's going to get Claire and he might even go for copies of her. Don't listen to what he says. Editor's note here. What the fuck do you mean she's electric? Her last name is Flint. What the fuck do you do with the flint? You spark it to light something on fire. The action of the spark isn't enough to deem this character to be you know what? As far as the entire element goes, a lot of the problems most of these characters have can be summed up as an overall lack of content for them to actually do anything in. And to be honest, I think these characters will actually get a chance to shine the moment we get a Fire Void Hunter. So here's hoping that Sunbringer lives up to her name literally and brings the heat. Lord knows she isn't doing that in that outfit, good god. Anywho, that's all from me today. Let me know what you guys think about this video. Do you agree, disagree, all that jazz? This video will probably come out well after Remiel releases, and I'm sorry for that. I've been dealing with work and my continued editor's blog and such. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I appreciate each and every one of you guys who has stuck through with me through all of this nonsense. Let me know how your polls went and what exactly your plans are for the rest of 3.0, and as always, I've got to get started on the next one. I'll catch you guys later. Bye-bye.